Do you want us to Google it really quick?
No, we're the experts. It's fine.
It's close enough. 1915.
Oh, that was 1915. Mm-hmm. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of What's in the Archives. I'm Chip, the historian with the Oregon-California Trails Association. Joining me is Travis, my boss, and the guy that kind of runs the show here. Or not. And we're back for another adventure of What's in the Archives, where we go and show you the cool stuff we have here in our library and archives in Independence, Missouri. There's our surveyor's change from last time. Mm-hmm. We got some S words. But we're here today, again, like I said, to show you some cool stuff out of the archives. And first, we're gonna start with some tools. Keep in mind during the 1800s, when people are moving west, there was no Home Depot, no Strasser, Crystal Lumber, Lowe's, no local store you could go to get your stuff. So you had to make everything, including your own tools. So here we have a knife and a hammer. Things that are gonna allow you to do most of what you can out there. There's a full tang knife we can see here. Blade going all the way through it, rather simple machine. You've got an edge, a couple of rivets holding it in place, and a handle that may or may not have been flush at one point. Most of the old world was just eyeballed, so you'll notice things aren't always straight, aren't always level. They were doing the best they can. But here we have an old knife, and then an old hammer. It's not like there's manufacturer marks on here or anything. It's not like I bought this from Stanley or something. It's maybe a dude named Stanley.
Here, early independence, you're talking Independence isn't founded until 1827. There were a few businesses here in Independence where you could have potentially gotten these things made. And obviously, as the trail era went on, the Santa Fe Trail era of the 20s and 30s, Independence continued to build up. And by the early 1840s, Independence becomes the primary jumping off point heading to Oregon. And with that came more industry. So people started showing up that might make tools, that might make nails. Blacksmiths would have been here.
We also have our jug of nails. Mine's an old Folgers coffee can in the toolbox, but these are all pre-industrial squared nails because that's how you fashioned your wood together. And now there are ways to build things without using nails, but that requires expertise and time, not something everybody had when out moving west. And so nails were incredibly important to everyone. So important, in fact, there's old tales of Daniel Boone burning down his properties to save the nails and reuse those because he could make more lumber somewhere else. Granted, Daniel Boone's from kind of that first western push into the Ohio River Valley and Cumberland area, but we can cover that in another video if you all would like someday.
Early in the trail era, you got to keep in mind, Missouri didn't become a state until 1821. A lot of these early settlers, especially that were coming to Jackson County, were from Kentucky. So they were used to being backwoods people. These were largely Scots-Irish people who kept moving west to stay ahead of the crowd. I've read a lot of my own family correspondence, and they kept saying, we're here in Virginia or North Carolina, there's too many people, we gotta go west. They get to Kentucky a generation later, there's too many people, we gotta go west. They get to Missouri, same story, again and again and again. They just keep moving west ahead of the crowd. And with them, they brought their small-scale industry with them, the abilities to mill wood, to be a blacksmith, to make something as basic as a nail or maybe a little more complex like a hammer or a knife.
Yeah, and those places were established in the 1840s, but as they were going west, you had forts and things established, and currency supply and demand. If you remember our Oregon Trail game, supplies got way more expensive the further west you went.
A smart wagon train would have a blacksmith with them, would have somebody who was an expert in carpentry and things of that nature, because the other thing they found out quickly, you're leaving the humid Midwest for the arid West, and your wagons were invariably going to break down. You're crossing 2,000 miles of really rocky, sandy, muddy, wet terrain, and all kinds of weather.
There also has to be a bit of hope there that your carpenter isn't the 1 in 5 that doesn't make it west. Next object.
Our next artifact comes from the library side of things, and this is a 1915 pamphlet from Ezra Meeker, the story of the Lost Trail to Oregon. Who is Ezra Meeker, you might ask? Well, here I am to tell you. Ezra Meeker left St. Joe in 1852 with his wife and infant son, made his way to the Puget Sound, settled in a town known as Puyallup. Today you can visit the Ezra Meeker House. It's a large mansion, ran as a private museum. Ezra became quite wealthy when he got there, growing hops, got into real estate, got into banking. But by 1906, at the age of 78, he realized the young generations were going to forget what his generation did. Now we're 60 plus years past the Oregon Trail migration. It's starting to fade for public memory. So Ezra wants to do something about that. Ezra gets himself a wagon, a couple of oxen, his dog Jim, and he sets off walking back east at the age of 78. He gets back to Missouri. He decides to keep going, makes his way to Washington, D.C. In those days, you could literally pull up on the lawn of the White House. Teddy Roosevelt came out and greeted him. He makes his way to New York City, has a big parade down Broadway. There's pictures of him in all kinds of cities where he's popularizing the Oregon Trail again. Ezra would go on to make 4 trips back up and down the Oregon Trail. Along the way, he's stopping in the towns that have sprung up along the trail, and he's selling postcards, and he's hoping to raise enough money to build stone markers, little monuments, many of which you can still see up and down the Oregon Trail from the West Coast to the Midwest. By 1924, he actually got Congress to appropriate funds for marking the Oregon Trail. He founds the Oregon Trail Memorial Association, which morphs into the American Pioneer Trail Association. And by 1963, that generation, they're 40 years in, and it, again, loses steam, and it pretty much goes belly up. Fast forward to 1982 with the founding of our organization, the Oregon California Trails Association. We are a membership organization. You can join. You can become an Ezra Meeker Life member for the low price of $1,500.
We have other tiers as well. Links
Yes.
down below, description, all that fun stuff. We can also become a member here on YouTube and support us that way.
But back to Ezra. Ezra remained a really enterprising guy. He's kind of this quintessential American story. He's largely lost to American history, but certainly in the early 1900s, the man was meeting with Teddy Roosevelt. He convinced Congress to appropriate money. He had a parade down Broadway in his covered wagon in New York City. So he was certainly a celebrity in his day. Hopefully we can do our little small part to make his name known again.
Next object.
We have a lot of old books in our collection, a lot from the 19th century, and this one just sort of jumped out at me. It looks like a giant Bible. It's close, not quite a Bible. When you open it, though, the first thing that grabs my eyes is the name, John Ballinger Chiles. So those of you familiar enough with the California Trail will know that there is a Chiles cutoff of the California Trail. It runs roughly from Boise down into Northern California. The other thing that really jumped out at me was the spelling of Ballinger. Ballinger, everything I've ever seen, because I know the etymology of the name, he misspelled his middle name. He was named for two of his great-grandfathers who fought in the Revolutionary War. They were both captains. One was a Captain Ballinger, one was a Captain Chiles. John's kind of a lesser-known guy, but this book is called the Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge and Dictionary. So the thing to know about John, he was born in 1820 in Kentucky. The family moves to Missouri roughly around 1830. He's 20 years old when he acquires this book. So it appears he was probably studying for seminary. He was probably wanting to be a preacher. He eventually winds up in Oregon. But what's really interesting, way more interesting, I think, is his uncle. We sell this one in our bookstore, OCTA-trails.org, if you'd like to buy it. The Forgotten Trailblazer, Joseph Chiles and the Making of California. Joseph Chiles is a really interesting character. He's the guy that opens the Chiles Cutoff. Joseph Chiles is originally from Kentucky, settles in eastern Jackson County in 1830. But in 1841, he's with the Bidwell-Bartleson Party. That's the first major wagon train west. Chiles eventually leads 7 wagon trains west. There's a place in Napa Valley, California today called Chiles Valley. It was his 3,500-acre ranch. In fact, he planted his own vineyards there in the mid-1840s and kind of kick-started that industry. He brought grapes west from Missouri. Today, that is one of the top wine-producing regions in the world.
So to clarify, John, the one whose book we have, is the nephew of Joseph, the one from California.
Interestingly, John's father is 18 years older than Joseph, and Joseph is 10 years older than John. So Joseph was much closer in age to his nephew than he was to his own brother.
A couple little things I wanted to point out here. The tape on the spines, we did not do that. This is how it came to us. We have experts coming in to help us get these into better shape, because obviously we have some damage here in the front, or what looks like the opening credits to Barbarella. Things that stuck out to me, though, about this is, one, this is supposed to be the cheap and compact library of religious knowledge at, a solid 4 inches. What little bit I'm willing to open on this, it's all words. Last time we talked about how a lot of these books had their illustrations and things ripped out of them. This one's just a lot of words. So
And
it's
about 8 point.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's
See if
tiny.
I can.
Well, that might be 6 point. It's really small.
It's real small. But moving on. All right, so now we can move on. I just wanted to get that in there.
Well, be sure to like, share, subscribe, join, get all the benefits of membership, the quarterly scholarly journal, the quarterly newsletter, invites to events, tours, speakers. We have chapters from Missouri to the West Coast, so if you're anywhere between the Missouri River and the Pacific Ocean, we definitely have a chapter for you, but you can even join a chapter if you're in Australia, if you're in Europe.
3% of our viewers are from Australia.
Shout out Australia.
Shout out to our Australian viewers.
Please like, share, subscribe, comment, join.
See you next time.